there are some people who may be jumping into the story, especially watching this as a clip afterwards, and they're like, come on, Dan, this can't have been this bad. How, anti-Semitic is Kanye West? Is it really as bad as they're saying? And I'm here to tell you, no, it's not as bad as they're saying. It's 3 trillion times worse. And so here we're going to play the clip, and whether this is satire or parody or whatever, I think we need to take the fact that this person is using this platform and is being talked about very heavily and saying things like this.
But for the ADL, I want to say there's a lot of good Nazis that were just fighting for their country. And for them all...
Like George Soros.
For them all to get put in a box. They're all in a box. Every Nazi's bad. Well, could some of the Nazis have just been fighting for their country? Oh, they're all... Oh, we can't put them all in a box.
No, I get you're explaining that, like you said, you love the Zionists. You don't agree with some of the things they're doing, even though you don't support a lot of what's happening. Seriously, I've really studied a lot of history. Plus, I had family that was there. And so, I mean, I don't think Hitler was a good guy. I get...
I'm trying not to pause this too much, but Alex Jones is kind of trying to defend Ye here, which tells you how low we've gone. So yeah, here's going to continue.
Even though you don't support a lot of what's happening. Seriously, I've really studied a lot of history. Plus, I had family that was there. And so, I mean, I don't think Hitler was a good guy. I get the Hugo Boss uniforms, amazing. But I mean, just because you're in love with the design, you're a designer. Can we just kind of say, like, you like the uniforms, but that's about it?
No, there's a lot of things that I love about Hitler. A lot of things. Hey, Netin, what did you think about that, Netin? This is...
Okay, so you heard the whole Netin thing. You heard a voice there. I'm going to stop there. But the graphic you're seeing right now is something that the Infowars control room was about to post up. And I'm sorry, I have the crop kind of weird here. But basically, it's supposed to be this graphic about the Azov battalion in Ukraine. Like, I'm not, like, showing it to be like, hey, look, here's some propaganda here I'm willing to spread. But, like, here's some of the crazy that you're starting to see that just like happens to be on here. Just like virulent anti-Semitism that they had ready to go. Okay. But by the way, during this, you're going to see Ye pull out a, like a net for fishing and a Yoo-hoo or Yahoo little chocolate milk thing. And that's going to be his representation of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Insane. Netin, what did you think about that, Netin?
Netin.
This is insane. You are an insane person. How could you say something? It's okay that...
So let me ask you, you like the Azov battalion because they openly heil Hitler. They're the leftovers of World War II. They support Zelensky and attacking Russia. So you like the Azov battalion?
I love everyone.
Well, my point is you weren't involved with Hitler. You didn't do anything. So having the ADL say anybody that opposes communism and the New World Order is a Nazi, well, you kind of get what you give, you know?
No one cares about the ADL. They're played out.
No.
The Anti-Defamation League, the people who protect against these kind of stuff. Also, let's just note that like Nick Fuentes is here, just like looking very kind of like smug here. The part where like Ye is like, I love, quote unquote, I love Hitler. You look at him. Look at him. Like, yeah, you can't really see. Hey, you can see my mouse over here. He's smug. That's, I know
he's had
smug.
that face on for the whole clip. Yeah, every time it pans over to him, that's what his face looks like. And he hasn't said anything, which is fine. It's like he's just watching this whole train wreck happen before him. And he's like, how did I get here? But this is great. This is hilarious. And
like
I mean,
he's
just
he's someone who's winning.
Alex Jones seems like the more sane one in the room.
I mean, Alex Jones is the more sued one in the room, at least more recently, right?
I was gonna say, like, how is he even like doing his show and like having people like Nick Fuentes and Kanye even on in the first place? Like, isn't he afraid of getting like losing more millions and millions of dollars? I guess not.
Listen, like, I guess technically what you're doing here, there's nothing like legally liable here, but I mean, he supposedly has advertisers or people working with him, and you've got to think that, okay, maybe he wants to save face for someone here, but no, I think he mostly cares about his subscribers and his audience. That's mostly what's keeping him afloat. And to tell you that what's mostly keeping his audience afloat is the virulent racism. Yeah, Alex Jones just like, well, I'm stuck here. And Nick Fuentes is like, this is like going to Vegas with 50 cents and hitting the jackpot for $2 million. Like, there's no more, like, less effort, low risk, high reward thing that Nick Fuentes has ever done or Milo has ever done in either of their lives for their careers than tack on to Kanye West. Because
what's Kanye wearing?
A gimp suit. No. Like some type of like mask thing that he has over himself.
Thing?
I love we're thinking on like similar tracks, but I don't believe it's Balenciaga. But okay. I remember him wearing this during the Super Bowl earlier this year.
I remember, like, I know he's worn something like that before, but I remember when Kim Kardashian, when she wore that to the Met Gala, when she was just all in black, that was a Balenciaga getup. And so that would be interesting if that's what he was wearing. I don't know enough about fashion to say whether or not that is Balenciaga officially what he's wearing, but I think Kanye has a habit of saying things with a point, but like never actually getting his point across, which is interesting because he's a writer, right? Like he writes lyrics. He's a poet. He should know how to communicate ideas better than he has done in the past. I think what he's trying to say is that some people had to fight in the Nazi army, whether or not they actually believed in everything the Nazi army stood for, which is like that's
I think that's just being too charitable. I mean, right? I feel like I guess to some extent, but I think it's just also being too charitable to what he's saying. Because maybe like a rational person would be able to make like yourself would be able to get that point across and say, I do not love Hitler, but it's very clear that there are a number of Germans who like believed in the propaganda, and there are a lot of Germans who are like compelled to compelled to fight on the German side. But like that's not you need to have kind of an understanding about people on a class level, and that it's harder for people to have an experience where they're able to fight against their government in that way. Because like, for example, in Russia right now with Ukraine, it's very hard for Russians to stand up against their government, especially when the Russians are the Russian police are coming knocking down their door saying, you're going to fight in this invasion whether we like it or not. You're going to send you over there. We're going to train you even though we have no people left to train. And we're just going to
don't even know what they're going to Ukraine for. Like, they find out once they get there.
Yeah, but like that's nowhere near the point that Ye is making here. And I'll get to one of the other worst clips in the world, that I say, but it just does not get any better for me.
Yeah, and like the whole thing where he's like, yeah, I love Hitler, because like I feel I don't even want to say that out loud, even as a quote, but he was like, I love everybody. Fine, but like, why do you have to be so explicit and so specific about this one really, really horrible person? Like the point he's trying to make is just like, I love people, I love humanity, I love everybody, which is, I guess, a nice sentiment. But at the same time, you know what you're doing, like you have to know what you're doing. I think
that is also the most distilled version of, okay, but why do we have? And it's just a wild screenshot here, but like, why do we say, okay, we love all people, but we also have jails, right? Like we love all people, but I recognize that people on like a very basic elementary school level, right? Like pro-prison abolition, anti-prison abolition, like not even trying to get there, right? But like, you understand that sometimes people do bad things and you need to separate, and like they'll do it repeatedly without remorse.
They're dangerous to society and to other people. Like entire nations of people, like they're dangerous people, and they shouldn't be praised, singled out for praise. Say I love everyone, including this one guy who is terrible and destroy lives and families and for generations. These generations of people are still dealing with the fallout from World War II, and it wasn't that long ago. It was less than a century ago, and in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. Like it was like yesterday. It's kind of scary how how we feel like we're so advanced and so progressed these days, but really that was not far in our history, right? And then there's so many things that have happened since then that, weren't great either. And for some reasons, like we hit the 90s or maybe the 80s and we're like, look, we're better now. We fixed ourselves. We're not racist anymore. We know that genocide is bad. We've learned all of our lessons. But really, these things are cyclical, right? So it's not that maybe I shouldn't say it's not surprising, but I mean, I guess could have been expected that something like this would have some kind of resurgence, right? During our lifetimes. But it's interesting because I did a whole story today for the breakdown about the Balenciaga scandal and everything going on with the ad campaign and things like that. And, a lot of people are tying it in with the Illuminati and Satanism and things like that. And they're saying, this is Satan's work here, right? And I'm hearing these people talk about Satan and they're saying, you have to find God and you have to go to church and, go to the light and things like that. And it sounds like we haven't come far at all. It sounds like some, like witch hunt things from the 1600s or the 1700s. We haven't really advanced that much in our thinking. We're still paranoid. We're still looking for answers and we're still seeking meaning from somewhere. And then we just like default to God or the devil or whoever. When the reality, I mean, look, I'm not trying to say that like God isn't real or anything like that. Like I'm not making a judgment call there as far as religion's concerned. But whenever people say things like this is the devil at work, you're kind of giving an excuse to people who are just terrible people, right? And you're not acknowledging that people themselves can be evil without the devil even getting involved, right? That's human nature. And by ascribing it to the devil, you're taking all the blame off of that person. You're saying it's not your fault that you are the way you are. People like Kanye, you can make a million excuses for him, right? You can say he's going through something, he's going through an episode, he's going through a divorce, he's going through, potentially losing his kids, whatever. This is him. It doesn't matter what he's doing or it doesn't matter what he's going through, but he's doing this and he's being destructive and people are putting him on shows. He's on Infowars and he's on Tim Pool's podcast and things like that. And he really shouldn't be anywhere.
I 100% agree with you. I had some point, especially with the Illuminati thing. I had some points about like how this is stuff I remember hearing when I first got assimilated into like American middle schools, and I was like, "Oh, y'all are goddamn bored. Like y'all just like, have nothing else to talk about." And like, yeah, it's this.
It comes up all the time. Yeah.
The larger point I think I have about it to make it succinctly as possible is that this is because Americans don't have class analysis. This is because we all have this nebulous feeling that things are out of control, even though we're told that we have freedom. And that we feel like, oh, there's some power or some force we don't have control of, but we're always misfiring. Or actually, like, it's very easy to misfire because these things are obscured from a lot of people. I think a number of people on the left have it, close to right. And there are a number of ways, especially on the Republican side, to exploit those kinds of things. But really fast, I want to play this about a minute long, actually, no, even less, 40-second long clip of Ye introducing Net and Yoo-hoo.
I mean, I'm in the Twilight Zone right now.
The first time I've ever agreed with Alex Jones.
What did he say?
He said, I'm in the Twilight Zone right now.
Oh my God.
Netanyahu, what do you have to say? What do you have to say to Alex Jones right now, Nick Fuentes and Ye? It was bad. It was bad for Trump to meet with Nick and Ye. Okay. I had no idea your voice is going to sound like that, Netanyahu.
Oh my God, he's not even funny.
So you don't like Benjamin Netanyahu?
It's like
my favorite.
Funnier than Elon Musk. Okay, it's funnier than Elon Musk. It's just like, what?
I was like, as soon as he started, you could see Alex Jones's face, and it was like he looked off camera to like his producers, like, what is happening? Like as soon as he starts, so yeah, like right here, look at his face. Yeah, there.
He's looking at one of the cameras, just like, oh God.
He's just like,
yeah.
How did we get here?
You sort of see it's like a angle over here, just like, bro, what?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so
you don't like Benjamin Netanyahu?
I just heard about this guy 2 weeks ago since like the tweet, and I thought he had a funny name.
I mean, I'm in the twilight zone right now.
Netanyahu, what do you have to say? What do you have to say to Alex Jones right now, Nick Fuentes and Ye? It was bad. It was bad.
It's so god. Yeah. No, we'll stop right here. We'll take a little bit of a break. It's so cringe. I know. There's one person who was late bloomer was like, I can't do this anymore. It makes my skin crawl. Sorry, gotta go. No,
I know. Like, ew. It's embarrassing.
I want to get to the.
Like,
I want to get to the serious.
for him.
I want to get to the serious point of this because, like, up to this point, there were a number of people who were like really agreeing with Ye. They're like, oh, how come you can't say certain things about this? But like, what I was trying to get to is that this lacks a power analysis of like, it's not Jewish people, it's capitalism. And like, Jewish people aren't like the leaders of capitalism. Capitalism is a system. It's like, it is like, the where Kanye is just kind of deranged at this point. And we also have Nick Fuentes and Milo Yiannopoulos, who are in one hand trying to just revive their careers and being very opportunistic at this point, and grabbing onto Ye and creating these stunts and just like being goofily right next to him and getting a lot of support by right-wing nationalists online will be the next best way to revive their careers. This has a danger because without an actual context, because people don't have a history and learning about how Jewish people were discriminated against in a lot of the same industries, places where people believe or perceive there to be concentrations of Jewish people. Like, I remember someone saying the history of how Jewish people were kept out of the banking system in a lot of different Christian or Catholic societies throughout history. And so they had to obviously form their own banks. In Los Angeles, for example, where I live, there's a area in the middle of the city called Fairfax, where a lot of the Jewish people like sort of live and still live to this day. That's now a fairly like prosperous area, but beforehand was redlined just like neighborhoods that were black or Japanese or too Mexican here. Like literally, there are papers from the federal government that say this area is probably going to be blighted because of its Jewish population, right? Mm-hmm. So Kanye West is spewing all of this anti-Semitic vitriol from his platform. Americans don't have like even the amount of history I've just described into how Jewish people have been systematically oppressed in this country until really post World War II, and how a lot of Americans were on Germany's side until, you know, the middle of World War II. Even in the beginning of Pearl Harbor, they were like, whoa, wait, this is the Japanese. Like, why are we getting involved in this whole like German stuff? Like, it wasn't until late in the game where Americans even realized what was going on, the importance of like recognizing the humanity of people who practice the Jewish religion and all the other people who were persecuted during the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. But because we don't have that teaching, because we don't have that thinking, you have a bunch of people who are just being misled. And these people, you know, I don't think are going to vote in any tangible way. They'll probably get vote split among Trump and Ye and whatever other number of the clown car Republican candidates we'll be talking about over the next year or two.
Can't wait.
It's going to be fun. You know it here first. But it's going to be... I am really worried for how society is going to turn to this, because what this directly turns into is violence. What this definitely turns into are, shootings and danger and stuff like that. So, with that, I kind of want to get your thoughts on the larger implications of stuff.
The larger implications of all of this. You know, I liked the point that you brought up about World War II, right? And what the world was like back then. And obviously neither of us were there at the time. But whenever you look back in history, at these big events, right, things are written about them, right? But if you think about like a history book, a textbook in school, right, you would have like a big event that happened and it's like there in a paragraph and then they move on to something else, right? But at the same time, that was a big event, especially for the people who are living through it, right? Just to give you an example, like the Titanic sinking, right? That was a big major event. It was big enough to make it into textbooks. They made a movie about it. We know that the Titanic hit an iceberg and it sank in the Atlantic Ocean on its maiden voyage, right? And that's a thing that we all know. That's like the one liner for what happened with the Titanic sinking. But then you think about it, you really think about it. These people, a handful of people, were in the middle of the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, freezing to death in the middle of the night, and no one knew they were there, right? Like, how do you recover from something like assuming you survived? How do you emotionally, psychologically recover from something like that? Having lived through that, your entire life is different, having gone through an experience like that. And all these major world events that happen in history, all these things that we read about in textbooks and that we learn about and we Google and we, try as hard as we can to like get into the time and the setting and understanding what was going on there. There are a million different perspectives and ideas and different things happening how countless numbers of unique experiences, all of which contribute to the reality that is existing during a certain time, right? 9/11 is a more relevant example, or a more recent one at least, one that's more relevant to people living today and probably people watching this. We know what it was like living through something like that. And then all the years that came to follow, even up till today, right? We still are dealing with the ramifications of 9/11. But in a textbook, how is that depicted, right? So I think whenever we talk about things like World War II, like the Holocaust, like Hitler, it's a lot to unpack, right? Assuming that you want to do all that work to unpack it, which most people don't or don't have time to, even if they wanted to. So whenever Kanye West now is talking about what was going on in Germany, I don't know what perspective he's talking from. I don't know what kind of point he's trying to make ultimately, right? I don't know what he wants to happen from the things that he's saying now. I don't know what outcome he's hoping for. And I think that's what's kind of dangerous about it, right? I think he's not thinking this through. I think that he's just like on these shows and he's saying whatever he wants because like, I don't know. And I think that that's actually part of the problem is that all these people come on these shows, people like you and me right now, and we're trying to get into the head of somebody like Kanye West, and we do it with Elon Musk and all these different, Donald Trump, all these different very eccentric characters that we see in the media all the time. And we're like, oh, you know what? Elon, he knows what he's doing. Or no, he doesn't. He's an idiot and he's just fumbling. He's just a rich, spoiled kid, right? We're never going to know, right? It's all going to be speculation. All we can do is look at the actions that the things that happen after they speak, right? The actions that come from their speech. We can look at Elon Musk and say, well, he's saying all this stuff on Twitter and this is the result, right? And that's the best that we can do. And we can say maybe he wanted this to happen, maybe he didn't. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what their intention is and what their intention was. All that matters is what is the result. And for Kanye, what is the outcome of all of this, right? We're going to see more anti-Semitism in the world, or like in the real world, at least in this country, if not abroad, right? We're going to see the normalizing of things like anti-Semitism. We're going to see the normalizing of racism, like overt racism. We already have like all kinds of examples in the media of people calling Black people the N-word with like the hard R and everything. And it's really something that I thought I wouldn't really live to see again. Like I grew up in the 90s and that was just like unheard of then, and seeing that become okay again to the point where like people are very comfortable saying that word publicly, or they're not really facing a whole lot of retribution apart from like a little bit of public shaming, right? That's kind of wild for me. And ultimately, the results are not going to be good. It feels like we're taking so many steps backwards from where we were, where we could have been. But the reality is it's not really a step backwards so much as it's like these things are so cyclical. You think you're making progress. All it does is kind of like flip the wheel around to the other side. It's like a pendulum effect a little bit. So I don't know.